Breakneck through the Bible 2017-2018 Class 22. Tonight we're going to be speaking about Pesach, about Passover, as we are a few days away. First, I'd like to invite anyone who would like to join us. We'd love to have you for any of the seders that are Friday night, Saturday night, or for the lunches on Sunday, on Saturday lunch or Sunday lunch, or the end part of the holidays of that start Thursday night, right? Then Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday. So just let me know what you'd love to come for. We would love to have you all join us for all of that. Okay, so tonight we wanted actually also at the end of class we're going to have Rabbi Feigenbaum come here and help sell your chametz. So so he will be here, and we'll kind of go through that process at the end of class. We would like him to help sell the chametz. He would love to help you out in selling your chametz.
This is the only night for that?
No. What are you worried about?
I got a lot of sweat.
No. So like this, he's not selling your chametz. You appoint him your messenger to sell your chametz on Friday when it becomes forbidden. So don't worry about it. Don't worry about putting it aside. You could appoint him as your messenger even before you go ahead and you kind of get all your bread products out of the house. So don't worry about that. He'll be here. He'll be here, and everyone's welcome to come to join. Okay, so tonight with the idea of Passover. So I want to just start off with asking a very simple question. We have a bunch of scholars in the room and even more scholars online, and I'd like to ask the following question: what are we celebrating on Passover? Okay, right? We're making the celebration. So, what are we celebrating on Passover?
That we personally were led out of Egypt.
That we personally were led out of Egypt.
We received the law.
We received the laws. Now, don't worry about it. You guys have only been celebrating Passover for like 50 years, so don't feel bad that you're stymied at the question. I'm just asking just a very simple question. This is not a, this is not meant to be a brain, but be ready to defend your answer and why you think that it's okay, why you think that that's what it's all about. Okay, so I want to know the main idea, right? You're going to be at a Seder, and we have to give over, right? We have to transmit to our children, right? The main idea of Passover. So you said it's about receiving the Torah. And you said it was about...
We ourselves were freed from Egypt.
We ourselves were freed from Egypt. Okay?
The most important, God took the Jews out of Egypt from slavery.
God took the Jews
out of slavery.
Out of Egypt, out of slavery. Okay, good. Good. Very interesting, actually. Just parenthetically, how many cups of wine do we drink on the Seder night? 4. Okay, and why do we drink 4 cups of wine?
For Exodus?
Well, there are 4 different levels of freedom. So you have to tell me then what are we celebrating tonight, as opposed to those other times. So someone might say creation of the Jewish people. Okay. Or is it creation of the Jewish people? What did Jewish people become created? No. Adam and Eve were not Jews.
With Abraham?
Abraham is really considered the first Jew. Where is the Jewish people created? Mount Sinai. So what are you doing tonight? What are you doing? Tonight was Passover night. You were sitting at my Seder. Right? So what are we celebrating?
Freedom.
Oh! Finally! Norm says freedom.
So what?
Oh. So now, freedom is one that people always talk about. We're free, yippee-dippee-doo. Now I'm going to ask you a sacrilegious question for an American to ask, but I feel I need to ask this question. Is freedom an intrinsic value? Or is it only what you do with it? Let me repeat the question. Is freedom an intrinsic value? Or is it only what you do with it that makes it important?
You study Torah, you become free.
It's not just what you do with it.
Okay.
Because if I don't do anything with my freedom, I still have freedom that I choose not to use.
Well, okay, good. Let me ask you a question. Just parenthetically on that. Would it be better that you wouldn't have the freedom then? Somebody expanded energy to give you freedom and you refuse to use that? Is that not a bigger shame than not having it at all?
It's just a bigger shame.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. So people make lots of choices.
Yes.
Right, okay, good. So let me repeat the question. So is freedom an intrinsic value? Or is it only have value? Right? Does it only have value? Depends what you do with it.
It depends what you do.
No, it has value before I have the value of freedom before I choose what I do with my freedom. There is value in having it. If I don't exercise that value, the value is innate in the freedom.
Yeah? Can I ask you a question?
Feel free.
Okay. Okay. Hitler was free to murder 6 million Jews and 50 million people. Was his freedom good to have?
He did not kill 6 million Jews.
No?
No,
Who
he
did?
and all his allies killed 6 million Jews.
Correct.
To lay it all off on Hitler is to lay it off on a free.
Oh.
No, he had a cadre of people.
Absolutely. But he had freedom.
Yes,
Was it good that he had that freedom?
it's good that he had this freedom. It's not good how he used it.
It's okay. So good. So should he have the freedom or not?
No,
Yes.
you should not have lived.
Really?
Yeah.
I humbly disagree. If he used his freedom to do bad,
Mm-hmm.
and forget about Hitler. There's all these bad people throughout the generations that use their freedom in terrible ways. Would it be better that they didn't have the freedom, or would it be better that they had the freedom and let him use it and just they're using it in the wrong way? I would clearly, to me, I think it's clear that it's better they didn't have freedom.
Yeah.
If somebody says to me, Rabbi, if you could have shot Hitler, and in 1939, would you have done it? I said, in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
In a heartbeat.
How about 1932?
In a heartbeat.
Only with the knowledge you have now.
With the knowledge, right. Not talking about with the knowledge that we have now, right? The knowledge we have now. And it happens to be a fascinating question anyway from a Jewish perspective because it's really not so clear. Because God has a master plan. And so there's a lot more than just Hitler. There would have been somebody else who was evil.
But if God had a master plan, and part of his master plan was allow me to go back in time to kill Hitler, me killing Hitler was part of
Amen,
his
baby.
plan.
Step me up, give me the gun, I'm happy
Yeah.
to, not a question. So, freedom is not an intrinsic value. Freedom is only if you do something good with it. Now, we're free to do lots of things in America today, doesn't mean it's good, right? It depends on how we choose to use our freedom and how we're going to use it, right? So that being the case then, so now I'd like to ask the question again. If we're celebrating on Passover night the concept of freedom, why is that such a big deal? Who really cares? Because if it's about what you do with it, on Passover night, we just became free. Yes.
The answer is freedom is a freedom. Anybody can have freedom. But in this case, God took them out to start Judaism. There was scholars in the past. There were people who were very scholars that today's rabbis were around.
Mhm.
They were free to study Torah. They were free to start a new path of life for people.
Excellent. So then, let me ask you the question. So what are we celebrating on Passover night?
God made us his people.
That God made us his people. That certainly is part of it.
We became a nation?
And again, or the beginning, if you can imagine, the Exodus from Egypt is sort of the Jewish people were in vitro fertilized inside the land of Egypt. Okay, and you can imagine the pregnancy was the 210 years we spent in Egypt. The night he took us out was the birthing process of the Jewish people. Okay, but that was the birthing process of the Jewish people. That's when the Jewish people were birthed into the world. Where was the circumcision? At Sinai, right? 'Cause that was entering into the covenant.
Yeah.
Right, circumcision entering into the covenant.
Yeah.
And why was it? Because that was 7 weeks between Passover and Shavuos. And Shavuos is the 50th day, which is the beginning of the 8th week. Like the 8th day. So it's the 8th week, at which point in time on the 8th day, right, we go ahead and we become, that's when we go ahead and we enter into the covenant of God. The main idea that we're celebrating on Pesach night is the idea that the Jewish people, God came and showed the world who God was and that he was unmatched by any power, and he took us out to create a relationship with us. My friends, when you finish celebrating Passover, when you finish the Seder, you should be floating. God of the universe says, Epstein, you, come here. Me and you, we're going to be good friends. God, master of the world, master of the entire universe, controls everything. There is nothing besides God. And he says, Epstein, I'm going to take you out, and I'm going to go ahead, and we're going to have a nice little relationship between me and you. And let's go riding off into the sunset. At the end of our Western movie, shoot 'em out, beat 'em up, kill the Egyptians, and off we go to create the Jewish people. That is what Pesach is all about. That God says, I want a unique relationship with you, and I'm going to take you and make you my people. And if you don't walk out of the Seder, at least being 10 feet tall, and at least saying, oh my gosh. And if we don't feel that way, we miss the point of the Seder. Because the whole point of the Seder is that God says, I want you. I want a relationship with you. Not anybody else. We, the Jewish people. There were millions of people around. Tens of millions of people. And God says, you Jews, come with me. We and you are going to have a thing over here. We are going to be the people that's going to go ahead, and that you're going to be my representatives in this world. People, go ahead, yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
How exactly during the firstborn,
Plague of the firstborn.
when God passed over all the
Jews, right?
how this fit into? all
And
the
it's fit
picture?
into the whole picture, so I'm going to explain to you very simple. The plague of the firstborn was the first thing Moses, when he walked into Pharaoh, said to him. You know what he said to Pharaoh? He says, God has a little message for you. He says, you're messing with my people. The Jewish people are called B'ni Bechori Yisrael. My son, my firstborn son, Israel. Right? The Jewish people are considered God's firstborn sons. And you're messing with God's firstborn son. I am giving you the opportunity to let them go now. Or in the end, God will mess with your firstborn sons.
Wow.
If you stop and think about that message for a minute, it's like mind-blowing.
Moses said that to the Pharaoh?
Moses said that to Pharaoh.
I never heard
Pharaoh, listen up carefully. I got a message for you. He walks into the king. Pharaoh was the head of the universe. You understand? He was the king of the world. They were the lone superpower in the world at that time. And Moses comes swaggering in. I got a message from you. Listen up carefully. Let me deliver this to you. God says you're messing with his people. You're messing with his children. You're messing with the firstborn children. Well, God will mess with yours. Unless you let the Jews out. Now.
Did he say firstborn son?
Yeah, B'ni B'chori Yisrael. It's actually interesting. Some are saying, but now it's interesting because, by the way, the Egyptians, all firstborn died, whether male or female.
Yeah.
Right? It was not just the firstborn males. You make that mistake. The firstborn males and the firstborn females all died. And then now that went on to tell you the firstborn, I'll give you a little color commentary on that. Is that the Egyptians were a nation that was steeped in immorality. And so what happened was, if a woman had 10 kids, it might have been from 5 different fathers on the block.
Wow.
Which means that how many firstborn children did she have?
At least 5.
The 5. So the night of the death of the firstborn, how many people died in her house?
5.
5 out of 10 of the kids, right? Half the kids. Right? If she was a firstborn or if her husband was a firstborn, they died too. If the grandparents were in the house and they were firstborns, they died too.
Isn't that why they said that it said that the houses were found empty?
That's why the Talmud said, the Torah says, there was no house in which nobody died. Because let's say all the firstborns were out. Who died in the house?
Nobody died in the house, but they all died.
No. The oldest in the house died. Right? The Torah says there was no house in which there was no dead.
Oh, so the second one?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's even more than that. I'm going to tell you something like super cool, like really good. Like, make sure you say this over at your Seder, because this is like even like double cool. You see, what happens like this. By the end of the 9th plague, okay, your average Egyptian, what was he thinking?
It's time to quit.
Let's overthrow the Pharaoh.
Right. Let's get the heck out of Dodge. Right? Get them out of here. Right? You dumb, you stupid, you're blind, you're dumb. Right? What are you doing? Right?
Wasn't there a civil war before the...
And so what happened was,
Yeah.
the Egyptians started a civil war against Pharaoh, right, to let the Jews go.
So there was a complete chaos.
Oh, chaos beyond chaos. You can't even imagine what was going on. It was Lebedik. Like God, like this was like, this was good. Let the good times roll. Because then what happened was like there's a quite interesting dilemma. So who led the revolt? All the firstborns. Because they were about to die.
Right.
They figured out. Now why wasn't Pharaoh afraid?
They didn't believe in God.
No, so you don't become king of Egypt by being a sissy. Just remember that. Okay, and we don't know how many people he had to climb over to become the king, but there probably were a lot of dead people along the way. You don't become the head of the world, right, by being a sissy. Right? So who led the revolt against Pharaoh?
The firstborn.
All the firstborns. Who shut down the revolt?
The army.
The army. But now let me ask you a question. So let's say you were a second-born son and you were in the army. And so who did you fight against?
Your brother.
Your brother. Now what happened if you killed your brother?
The older brother. Then you become...
Then you become the firstborn. Bam! Now you become number 1.
That's a dilemma.
What? Is that a dilemma? So now which side? Now all of a sudden you switch sides. Because all of a sudden now your neck is on the line. Because now you're the firstborn.
I'm surprised anybody survived that.
You have no idea. You have no idea. They said in Egyptian history, there's 100 years of Egyptian history that's just blank. Funny, coincidentally, it just happens to be during the time of the Exodus of the Jews from Egypt.
3,330 years.
3,330 years ago.
Yeah.
Just by accident.
Yeah.
So what happens is, understand what happens. That's the plague of the firstborn. Wait till we get to the other 9 plagues. And that's in order to get, why? Because you're messing with the Jewish people that are called God's firstborn children. And if you mess with God's firstborn children, it's going to be a price to pay.
Time out.
Yeah.
So we already had a contract before this.
Ooh, gewaldig. Where did we have the contract before this?
Abraham time.
Ooh, very good.
Yeah, the
Ah.
covenant of the parts.
We had the covenant of the parts, right? Abraham already made the deal with God. Right? You're following, right? Remember, Abraham
is only one person.
Abraham 430 years before the Exodus. The Exodus, this Passover that we are celebrating is 3,330 years from when we actually walked out of Egypt. For the last 3,330 years that we've been that has been since the Exodus from Egypt, every year, all the Jews at this point in time get together and they make a big party. And this mitzvah is different than any other mitzvah that you have. You know what this mitzvah is about? Usually you have a mitzvah, you have to commemorate what's going on. Here you have a mitzvah to relive the experience. You have to look like if you came out on the night of Passover. You start off the night, oh my gosh, like, you know, the Egyptians are still around and I'm uncomfortable. You know, right? Because we're still in Egypt. And as the night progresses and we become freer and freer, till at the stroke of halachic midnight, all of a sudden, the Jewish people become free as the death of the firstborn hits the Egyptians. Right? So what happens is understand this, right? Understand what happens. Right? As the story unfolds, tonight, 3,330 years ago, right? Which brings us to what year? And the Hebrew calendar of 2248, right? And 3,300 years ago means 2,300. And right, 2,300, right, you go back, it goes back to 1312 BCE. The Jewish people walked out. 1312. Which 430 years before then, right? So 1312 plus 430 is 17, right? 1742 BCE was when Abraham made the deal with God. So I thought we were chosen already. What's going on here? What do you mean we're choosing? Excellent question. What's the answer? The answer is like this. Abraham made a deal with God that can never be broken.
Right.
We were locked in. We're going to be part of the Jewish people. So what did every Jew choose the night of Passover? They had to make one choice and one choice only.
Paschal lamb.
What was the choice they had to make?
In or out.
What?
In or out.
I'm right. Meaning, am I part of the Jewish people or am I not part of the Jewish people? Right? Okay, right? Am I a piece? Am I a piece of the Jewish people and therefore I'm going to go? Or am I not part of the Jewish people and therefore I'm going to stay here and be Egyptian?
And a lot of them decided not to.
And a lot of them decided not to. How many is a lot of them?
That's it.
80%.
80%.
80% of the Jews during the plague of darkness.
Can we go back
Done.
if you don't mind?
Yes.
And there were
So
millions
they
of,
had the contract.
Yes.
So that means the deal is done
Right. As individuals.
as individuals.
Good.
430 years, what the hell they did? They put themselves into that mess,
Right.
and then in that mess, they still have to come back and make it teshuvah.
Right.
So what is that whole picture about?
Oh, so like this. Excellent question. So the first 430 years of the first 220.
And one more thing.
Yeah.
And miracles happened after this story, not before that. There was
No,
miracles.
of course there were miracles beforehand. How old was Sarah when she had a kid?
90.
90 years old. Is that normal?
Not normal.
No, not normal in my book. Okay, right? Right? There are plenty of miracles. Right? I mean, we read the Chumash. Right? You read the Chumash, right? Remember, Genesis chapter 15 is when that deal was struck. Okay? The Jewish people, right? The book of Genesis in chapter 50 ends off the Jewish people are in Egypt. Okay? So what happened was, so over the course of those 220 years, right, the Jewish people, you had Abraham and Sarah, you had Isaac and Rebekah, you had Jacob and Esau, story of Jacob and Esau, Jacob getting married, having the 12 tribes.
But at one point, Joseph's time was great also.
Yeah, the show, no, it was fantastic. It was amazing. Right, Joseph gets down to Egypt, there's a big famine, and 220 years after the deal, all the brothers, including the father Jacob, end up going down to Egypt. And for the first 115 or so some years, the Egyptians treated us like royalty. All we did was study Torah. That's all we needed to do. The Egyptians fed us, clothed us, took care of our housing, paid our health insurance. Everything was great. Okay? It was wonderful. They took care of all our needs, and what did we do?
Tended sheep.
Right? No! What did we do?
No, we were in Goshen. We were going to tend sheep, right?
Oh, stop it. What were we doing when they were doing this all?
We meet with the Egyptians.
Studying Torah! Come on, studying Torah, guys. Right? If God gave you all the money in the world, what would you do? You probably still tend sheep. Okay. Now, Rabbi, what should you do if God gave you all the money in the world?
Thank God.
Study Torah. Can we develop a relationship with God? Right? So you go down into Egypt, and what happens? We're in Egypt. Man, and it's fantastic. Life is wonderful. And then what happens? All of a sudden, the drum beats begin, and the Egyptians start murmuring. There's too many Jews around. Oh my gosh, they control everything. Yada yada yada. Right? You ever hear that? Sounds familiar? Right? Then they said, okay, let's go ahead and let's get the Jews and let's go ahead and put them in. Right? Let's get them working now. Let's start slavery. And they had a whole plan, and they executed it perfectly. And the Jewish people then were in hard labor for 90 some odd years.
110.
How come they
No.
fell for it?
90?
How come we fell for it? Well, not everyone fell for it. The tribe of Levi did not fall for it. Right? The tribe of Levi just continued studying from as in day one. And they just continued studying during the whole 210 years.
They never had to lift a finger to build a house.
They didn't have to do anything.
Why them?
Why them? Because they were smart enough.
What the Egyptians did.
What?
Why not? Why didn't the Egyptians pick on them?
Pick on them because what happened was they said yesterday I was learning Torah. What am I doing today? Pharaoh made a whole scheme on how to get the Jews to get them out of the study hall. But he went to the main street, and he went down the main street of Borough Park, you know what I'm saying? And he started doing a public works project, and there was a king out there working, and the Jewish people studying Torah. And they look out, and instead of paying attention to the rabbi, they see Pharaoh outside. And they see he's working. Then what do they say? It's not nice to have the king just working outside, and we just sitting in the back in our comfortable chairs.
So if they wouldn't listen to the Egyptians, then they would continue to study.
And so tribe of Levi just says, you got to study Torah. Study Torah is more important. They didn't do anything. They sat and studied
So
Torah.
they wouldn't touch it.
Right.
The rest of them would
Right.
continue to study.
And so then the Jews started going out. They started helping, and they said, okay, what about this? Let's do this. Let's get there earlier before the Pharaoh. We'll show them how loyal citizens we are. And they kind of began just sucked out, slowly. And then one day, that some managers showed up. Let's do this smart. We'll all work together, yada, yada, you. And then they had managers, and they were working. And the Pharaoh says, listen, they said to Pharaoh, you shouldn't be here doing this. You got more things. You're running a country. You go run the country. We'll go do the building. And then one day, the managers, okay, it's great at everything. And one day, manager shows up, and he has a whip on his belt. And they say, what are you doing with that whip? He said, I was playing with my kids. I just kept it in there. And all of a sudden, the next one, all showed up with nothing doing nothing. And all of a sudden, one day, the manager tells you, do this. And what does the Jew say? The Jew says no. And you know what he does? He takes out his whip, whap. And guess what? You're all enslaved. Brilliant executed plan by Pharaoh. He deserves a tip of our hat. That was an amazing way how we got the Jewish people sucked into this deal. And that's how I went to go work.
So if they would all continue to study Torah, and they wouldn't be sucked into this deal,
but
the Egyptians wouldn't touch it?
Yes.
So they stopped studying.
And by the way, it's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, in case you want to know. Right? The Mishnah in Ethics of the Father says, Kol hamakabel olav ol Torah, whoever accepts upon himself the yoke of heaven, right? Mavinu olav ol derech eretz. We remove from him the yoke of earning a livelihood. 1 second. Yeah.
Okay, so Rabbi, there's a lot of Torah. The Egyptian slaves became free, and Moses wrote about 5 books. So they were reading and studying what part of the Torah? The
Okay,
Torah
okay.
and the Abraham?
Okay, excellent. There was the Torah, what we call the Torah. Okay, what we call the Torah was not around. This book was not around. This book only shows up in its totality 40 years after we leave Egypt. Okay, right? Remember, the Torah ends with the story of Moses dying. Moses dies at the end of the 40 years in the desert. So when I say Torah, what I mean by Torah are the commandments. How did they?
Commandments?
What? Did they have the commandments? Absolutely. And remember, the Torah already tells us that Abraham kept all the commandments. The Torah tells us that Noah, how many animals did Noah put on the ark?
2 of each.
Is that it?
7. Well, he had 7 pairs of kosher animals.
7 pairs of kosher animals and 2 non-kosher animals. Can I ask you a very simple question? How did Noah know which animals were kosher and which animals were not kosher? Because he knew Torah. Right? And that's exactly what it is. He studied Torah. So you see, he studied Torah. Right?
He
So,
studied what's not there.
how can you say it's not there? So now listen to me carefully. I'm going to reveal to you secrets tonight. And it's good. It's in honor of Passover. Because Passover is a time that we can achieve and tap into freedom that we never thought we could even imagine. I can teach you what real freedom is. Before God created the world, what does any good builder do before he creates a building?
It's a plan.
And blueprints. What was the blueprint of the world?
Torah.
The Torah. Right? The Torah is the blueprint of the world. Now let me ask you all a question. If there's a house for sale, and you want to know what it looks like, what are your 2 choices? Besides Zillow and Realtor.com.
You can go there and look at it,
You could go there and look at it,
or you can ask for the plan.
or you could ask for the blueprints, right? So guess what? Where are the blueprints? Blueprints we don't get to 40 years after the desert. But we are walking around in the house. We are walking around in the world.
I see.
And if we would be spiritually attuned and spiritually in the know, we would be able to go ahead and to understand every single commandment.
So
Imagine that. One of the most incredible ideas that you'll ever hear. Because I want to share with you something pretty stupendous. Okay? Something really just incredible. Why do we eat matzah?
To
Right? Why do we eat matzah?
well, as a symbol of deflating our ego a little bit.
Well,
To remember,
to remember that when God took us out of Egypt,
we were slaves.
and God came and took us out so quickly the matzah didn't have time to rise, right? Right? Everyone will tell you that, right? Even not God did we say that.
So Pharaoh said, "Let's go." They took him 18 minutes to get out.
Hold on. What happens? Go back to when the 3 angels come and visit Abraham after the 3rd day of circumcision.
He gave them matzah.
So he gave them bread. Because that was the 14th of Nisan. That was Erev Pesach, when you can't eat matzah. But when they got to Lot that night, what did Lot give them? Matzah, because that was the Passover night. And that's Passover night was when when Sodom got destroyed. Now let me ask you a question. Right? And this is all in the Torah. This is not me, this is like black and white, you know what I'm saying? This is no water needed. This is like the real stuff, what the Bible says. Chapter 19, they showed up to Lot, and what happens? Right? Chapter 19, verse number 1, what happens? Right? They show up to Lot, and what happens? They show up. And Lot says the following. The 2 angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting at the gate of Sodom. Now Lot saw and stood up to meet them, and he bowed face to the ground. Sorry, verse number 2. Excuse me. It's verse number 3, actually. And he said, verse number 2, "Behold now, my lords, turn about, please, to your servant's house. Spend the night and wash your feet. Then wake up early and go on your way." And they said, "No, rather we will spend the night in the square." And he urged them very much. They turned towards him and came to his house. He made a feast for them and baked matzos. And they ate. And just in case you think that the norm was to feed them matzos, right? When they came to Abraham in chapter 18, so Abraham hastened to the tent and Sarah said, "Hurry, 3 saw of meal fine flour, knead and make cakes. Right? Abraham served them cake, bread. Lot serves them matzah. Why does Lot serve them matzah? Because it's a night of Passover. You can't eat bread. But hold on, I said, what are you talking night of Passover? This is 400 years, 401 years before the Exodus. And they're eating matzah already? You ever heard of such an absurd idea? And yet that's exactly what the Torah says. 401 years before they left Egypt, they're eating matzahs.
Because the 15th of Nisan has built into it the freedom.
Oh! So the idea is as follows. The 15th of Nisan, the night of Passover. What is the night of Passover all about? The night of Passover is the night upon which we can achieve freedom. Okay, we can achieve freedom. That's what we can do at the night of Passover. And if you know how to tap into it, you can achieve the greatest freedoms known to man. You can achieve this Friday night. This Friday night, you could go ahead and you can achieve the greatest freedoms ever. Lot knew this. And how did Lot know this secret? Because Abraham had taught him on the 15th of Nisan, you don't eat bread. Because you want to achieve freedom, tonight's the night to go and to achieve freedom. Right? That's what happens. That's what rolls around. And what happens is, Lot knew to eat matzah. You know why? Because matzah is a place in which there is no rising. There is no puffiness. There is no ego. And if you want to be free, if you want to achieve freedom, get rid of your ego. If you get rid of your ego, you can go ahead and achieve true freedom. You can go ahead and achieve real freedom. And that's why they ate matzah. They ate matzah in order to go ahead and in order to achieve freedom. And they were eating that, and they knew that back then. You really want to achieve freedom? Get rid of your ego. Become free of your ego. Because your ego will destroy you. He would go ahead and convince you that everything that what you think you need is going to kill you, but you need it. That's what the ego is. And when you eat matzah at that point in time, you go ahead and you're saying, I don't want any of this ego. 1 second. Yes. Thank you, Frank. You've been hanging in it for a long time.
But before my question, are they aware of the why they eating the matzah for first?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Okay. And when is the little while ago you mentioned the birth of the Jewish people?
Right.
When exactly was that?
The birth of the Jewish people, the sort of the leaving the birth canal was the night of Passover.
Okay.
It's when Pharaoh says you're free to go. They were dilated to 10 centimeters, ready to go.
Yeah. So the
okay, right. When do they actually walk out of Egypt?
At midday.
At midday, right? The midday of the 15th. Why at midday?
Because they didn't want to sneak out at the night.
Because nobody should ever say we couldn't walk out. We had to sneak out at night. You guys really didn't. We really didn't let you go. It was high noon. The whole world saw. They were the Jews strolling out of Egypt, a place that never before had anybody ever walked out.
So after it took you 18 minutes to make a matzah?
Oh, no. That's something interesting. So, but the 18 minutes is the amount of time in which dough begins to rise. And what happens is that it happened so quick that at that point in time they weren't able to let their dough rise. They just had to go and move.
Okay,
yeah.
So that was the birth of the Jewish people. So at the pregnancy,
yeah,
meaning before,
right,
and who the Jewish people were called? How we call Jewish people are forgotten at that time before.
So the Jewish, so they were Jews, right? Abraham is called the first Jew. He's called the patriarch. Sarah is called the matriarch. So you clearly have, right? You have the patriarchs and matriarchs, but as a people, this is where the Jews as a people,
Nation.
a nation, right? Really, this is really the birth of our nation.
Okay, so the word Jews, what that really mean? Because you said
So the word
Gentile and
no. So the word Jews, the word we're using for Jews is Yehudi, and that comes from the fourth son of Jacob, of Judah. And the reason why we're referring to them as Jews is because you know what the job of the Jews is to be?
praise God.
Praise God. Man, what does the word Yehuda mean? Meant to be thankful. Man, so we're called Jews in order to remind us that we always got to be in a state of thanksgiving and praising God.
So, Rabbi, in another word, so in connection with a choosiness, right? So we were chosen to be the praisers of the only one God. Is that correct?
To be the what?
Praisers, like worshippers of the one.
No. All the entire world has to be monotheistic. Remember, Abraham had accepted the responsibility to teach the world how to serve God. And that was what we chose. We chose to be his representatives in this world.
By accepting the covenant.
By accepting the covenant, absolutely.
Right. So, it's not because, God chose us just for us, because we accept the
God chose us and we chose God.
Right.
It's a two-way street. It's not just that he said, hey, you, I want you. We chose God and God chose us. It goes together. Right? And I'll tell you, if you want to hear something scary, like you want to get the scary, like the Dickens scared out of you, listen to this. Listen to this. This is a scary thing. Okay? This you got to fasten your seatbelts. This is not a fun thought. Okay? God went around to all the nations of the world before Mount Sinai and offered them the Torah. And they all turned it down for one reason or another. And they came to the Jews and said, yeah, we're in. Now let me ask you a question. Did all the Jews say we're in with the same passion?
No.
Some Jews said, oh my gosh, wow, amazing, let's go. And she said, yeah, sounds good, I'm in. And the Jews said, I'm not sure. Right? And when some Jews said, I think I'm going to vote against it. But thank God, as a Jewish people, we took it.
If there wasn't a mutual choice, if God just chose us, we'd still be in slavery.
Correct? Not only that, I'm going to tell you something like frightening. Do you know what happened to those people that said, okay, that they lost the vote and they went along to serve God?
They went what?
They lost the vote. Right? They were going to vote, no, we don't want God. Right?
Well, they went along.
And then they went along because that was the majority, right? Do you know what happened to their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren?
No.
They assimilated out.
So what's
The
going on
Zohar
right now?
says that this winnowing of the Jewish people leaving, comes about because when their great-grandparents stood at Mount Sinai, when they didn't do it with the gusto. Conversely, very fascinating. You know about those people that want to be Jews? Say, I want in? Do you know where they come from?
Where?
They were from the non-Jewish nations that their grandparents said, yes, I want in, but they lost the vote. And therefore they turned God down.
Why did they lose the vote?
Because the majority said no. And he went to all the nations. So it's so fascinating. Because you could say as a people, one way, as a people, another way, yada, yada, you. Forget about the people one way, the people the other way. Right? Where does it come from? Every single person has exactly what they chose in and what they chose out. Every single person gets it to the T. There's not an iota of losing something that you want in, or getting something where you don't do it the right way.
So it reflected to their generations.
Yeah, throughout history.
Yeah. So, Rabbi, so I'm a little curious. At the pre-Exodus, at the 8th plague when of the locusts, right? When God sees Aaron and Moses said, again go to talk to the Pharaoh
Mhm.
and tell him that the God is a Pharaoh's Moses and Aaron say to Pharaoh, this is what the God of the Hebrew say.
Mhm.
Okay, and let the people go otherwise. Da 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 da. Okay, if there was the Jews were known as a Jew, right? So because God said that I'm the God of the Hebrew people. Okay.
What is the Hebrew word for Hebrews?
Ivri, which means the others.
Ivri. You know what the word Ivri means?
Others.
What does it mean, others?
The not outsiders.
You know what the word Ivri means?
What?
The other siders. You know what the other siders are? The entire world says there's no one God. There's idolatry. There's many gods. The gods are busy fighting. And the whole world is on one side, and we're the Ivrim
The other side.
on the other side, saying there's one God, it's monotheism. That's what it means, the other side.
Right.
It means that, and in fact, we live in a world where the whole world says we're nuts. The whole world says we're crazy. And you know what we tell them?
You're crazy.
We're right! Right? You look around the world today. The whole world says, Israel, you're this, Israel, you're that. You're nuts! And what do we say? You guys are sick in the head.
So, Rabbi, with that said, unless I'm misunderstanding you,
Yeah.
so Abraham had a covenant with God.
Yes.
So many years later, God's offering this whole deal to everybody else, and the Jews are lost.
And the Jews are what?
Everybody else says no, and finally the Jews say, why did he even go to the others? He's got the covenant with Abraham.
Oh.
We're the others.
Right.
So
Right.
why didn't he just say, yeah, we are?
Oh. Excellent question. What's the answer?
I don't know.
It's okay. The question's worth more than the answer. I told you, a good question's worth more. Worth twice as much as a good answer. The answer is like this. Answer is like this. Very important idea. They went around to all the nations of the world, and let's see what a nation would have said, yeah, we want the Torah. What would have happened? Would God have come to the Jews?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Maybe he would have.
Of course he would have.
Why not?
Of course he would have.
Because we would
But if another nation opted in, you know what would have happened to that nation?
save the world.
They'd also be called Jews. Right? Do you understand? Right? If one nation said yes, he wasn't going to stop. And why is that? You know why? Because it's an amazing idea. If you want to join God's team, and you want to stand and show the world what it means to be a Jew, what it means to serve God, you know what we say to you?
Welcome.
Welcome aboard. We need good people. We need your help. If we don't, right? And so therefore, that he went down to the nations of the world, we have no problem with. It could be. There'd be more people who would go and would teach the world how to serve God. That's a wonderful thing. Right? It's all about going in and teaching the world what it means to serve God. It means to have a relationship with God. Yeah.
So then I go back to this whole business about the 15th of Nisan being ordained as a day of freedom for
Yes.
the Jews.
No, not for the world.
For the world.
Yeah.
So what is the 9th of Av then? It seems like that's the date of destruction for the Jews. Okay?
Ho 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 ho.
Really? It's a good question.
It's a good question. But why are you disturbing my Pesach with Tisha B'Av? I'm trying to forget about Tisha B'Av.
Tisha B'Av is coming next.
So I want to tell you something fascinating. Listen up to this idea. Because if the other idea wasn't enough to get up and dance, what I'm about to tell you now is enough. The Talmud says that at the end of days, all the holidays are going to be done, except for Tisha B'Av.
Really?
That's going to be turned into a holiday.
I thought Purim was going to be the day.
No, I'm going to tell you what this means. You know what this means? Tisha B'Av is a day when there are consequences to our actions. Right? The 9th of Av, the saddest day in the Jewish calendar, the day the two temples were destroyed 470 years apart. 490 years apart. Okay? On the same exact day, the temple was destroyed. Why was the temple destroyed?
Because we were unholy.
Because we said we were unholy, right? Sinat, right? Okay, that's the second temple, right? So what happens is the temple goes ahead, and the temple is destroyed. When will we get back the temple?
Mashiach comes.
What's going to bring Mashiach? When we learn to treat our fellow Jews like a mensch, right? So let me ask you a question. Let's say we get the memo and understand why it was destroyed and understand what we needed in order for it to be good, right? At that point in time, will that day be a holiday or will that day be a sad day?
Holiday.
A holiday. And that's what it says at the end of days, right? It just says at the end of days, all the nation, right? At the end of days, Tisha B'Av is going to become a holiday, right? What does that mean it's going to become a holiday? It means we're going to realize because when we finally got the memo, hearing the memo is something incredibly important. And you can figure out, you're going to hear it yourself, or how many times do we have to hit our head against the wall till we realize there's a wall in front of us? I don't know about you guys. I do not like pain. Okay? I have pain phobia. It must be a word for pain phobia. Right? I don't like pain. I try to learn my lessons very quick because I don't like pain. Right? That's right. That's right. So what happens is, so we have those choices, right? To opt in, to opt out, all these things, right? All these lessons, we have that ability. So Tisha B'Av is the day and when we I say reap the reward of our actions, good or bad. That's what the day of Tisha B'Av is all about, and we get a chance to choose what we're going to do. Yes.
So if the Torah has a blueprint, the blueprint was written,
Right.
and everything's in the Torah,
Mm-hmm.
beginning to the end.
Right.
So then the Jewish people during Egyptian time or whatever is living a moment basically.
They what?
They were living a moment, they just didn't know.
They were living.
The slavery was supposed to be part of the plan.
Yeah. No. Again, we could have gone around it. We could have missed the slavery.
How?
How? Okay, I'm going to take you back to another story in the Torah. Another story in the Torah is the story of where Lot, Abraham's nephew, gets captured. He leaves Abraham and he goes down to Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay, and then he goes ahead, and he goes ahead and he goes there. Why does he go to Sodom? Lot, Abraham's nephew. Why does he go to Sodom?
To save the Jewish people.
No, because he goes down to Sodom. I'm cool, by the way. I'm okay. Right? He goes ahead. He goes down to Sodom. Why does he go down to Sodom? When icicles been forming other people's noses, like I'll turn around. But it's only 73. It's not okay. Right? So he goes down to Sodom because he sees this lush land filled with gold. You know, they said in Sodom when you picked up a plant by the roots, there was nuggets in the roots of the plants. And the people there, because they had such financial wealth, became scummy.
Snobby?
Scummy.
Scummy.
Disgusting people.
Immorality.
And they came up with all the reasons why it was okay to be immoral. Why it was okay to hate poor people. That's what happens. And what happens? And Lot looks at this, and Abraham says, "Look, your servants are stealing. And we mean you can't live together anymore. Like it's just we're gonna fight, and I don't want to fight with you. You pick, you go right, I go left. You go to Sodom, I'll go the other place. You go to the other place, I'll go to Sodom." And Lot sees wealth, the dollar signs. You know those? You remember the little cartoons with it? You know the eyes, boom, 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 right? Dollar signs. And off he goes. And he shows up down to Sodom. And it's great, a lot of fun. Until one day there's a war. Very lush land. People like it. This big world war. The 4 kings against the 5 kings. And the 4 kings are so strong they beat the 5 kings of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, Soar. And they go, and off they go with Lot as their captive. Abraham sees what's going on. Says, I gotta save Lot. He made a poor choice, but I'm his uncle. I'm his brother-in-law. I gotta take care of him. What can I do? And that's what uncles do. We clean up after our nephews. And he walks into his yeshiva that had 318 people studying Torah. And he walks in, gives a clap on a bima, smack on the podium, says, everyone close your Gemaras. You got to come to go to war. You got to go to the army. We have a battle. We need your help.
None of them were qualified.
And at the end he goes ahead and he says, okay, but again, before Jews go to battle, we ask 4 questions. What are the 4 questions? Who just got married? Yeah. Who just planted a vineyard and hasn't eaten from it? Who just planted a house and hasn't lived in there? Ready? Who's got married, vineyard, house? And who's afraid? And all 318 men bowed out from going to the army. So, it's Abraham and Eliezer. Coincidentally, my friends. Does anyone know the numerical value of the name Eliezer?
Don't tell me 318.
I wouldn't tell you that, but it is. Eliezer is 318. Just what count? An Aleph is 1. Okay, Mr. Financial Planner, keep track, please. Aleph is 1. Lamed, 30. 30. So how much is that? 31. Eli Yud,
10.
41. Ayin,
50.
70. 70.
Great.
Wait about 2. 111. Zayin, 7. What are we up to now? 118. Reish, 200. 200 plus 118 is 318. Son of a gun. Wow, look at that. What a coincidence. Oh. Want to talk about miracles? Want more miracles? Anyway, well, the miracles is just starting. Slow down. And off he goes to battle, he and Eliezer by themselves against these 4 kings that are strong enough to beat the 5 kings. So what does a good Jew do when he's outnumbered by like 1,000,000 to 1?
Wins.
He takes dirt and he throws it at the enemy.
Takes what?
Dirt. And what happened to the dirt that he threw at the enemy?
Turns into tree and arrows.
Turns into arrows, spears. And he wipes out the 4 kings. And he recaptures, brings back Lot and all the captives. And the kings say to Abraham, do you want to keep the wealth, give us the people? And Abraham says, no, I don't want nothing of yours. You guys, I don't want you to think that you made me rich. I want nothing from you. Take everything and just go get lost. It's all from God. That's a story in chapter 14, Genesis. You read it afterwards. It's a great story. But now I'm going to tell you something amazing. Abraham walked into his yeshiva and he shut it down to take them to battle. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Bad.
How bad?
Very bad.
What was the consequence of that action?
Jews had to become slaves.
By Abraham shutting down his yeshiva, he went ahead and he showed that there was a certain lack of servitude to God. And because he didn't build it into the Jewish people, into the DNA, the entire Jewish people had to spend 210 years, 90 plus of them in hard labor, in order to get into their DNA the concept of serving God.
Who do you have other than the Torah studiers?
What?
Who do you have other than the Torah studiers to get involved in the war?
That's right. So the answer is like this. The answer was, it wasn't that he took them, because if he needed them to go to work, you go to war. That's not the issue. But you can't walk in and just shut it down. You should have taken them out one by one. Because at the end of the day, none of them went. At the end of the day, they all didn't pass the 4-question test. So at the end of the day, it was just like, okay, and he ended up with nothing. But then he shut it down was the problem. That was the idea of the lack of servitude, and that was the consequence of the Jewish people having to spend Exodus and to go ahead and learn how to be slaves, which is kind of quite amazing. Because then, in the master plan, was it good we were in Egypt, or was it bad that we were in Egypt?
It was good to be good.
It's good. We needed to be in Egypt.
Yep.
So then what was bad? Why did Egyptians get punished?
They didn't listen to God
How?
by freeing the Jews.
No. So what did they do wrong? Why did the Egyptians deserve to get 10 plagues? I mean, Egypt was so destroyed. It was a. I mean, I would love to make a real movie of what really happened. It was just the most. Just like if you can imagine it, it would be such a cool movie. I have so many good scenes. Like they could be just so unbelievable. I'll just tell you one that I find the most oh my gosh. Paro had a tremendous ego. That's why he was the king of Egypt. Because Egypt was a place of decrepitness. And he was the king of the decrepitness. Right? Do you understand? Right? And yet Paro was a midget. He was 21 inches tall. Moses, on the other hand, was quite tall. Can you imagine?
18 feet high.
10 cubits tall. Can you imagine Moses walking into Pharaoh? And you have Pharaoh sitting on this huge throne. This little tiny guy.
With his feet hanging out.
Right, his feet off the ground. And Moses walking and says, "Let the Jews go." And Pharaoh goes, "No, I will not let you go. Oh, no." And you can imagine the scene. It's like so amazing. So says God, Moses. No, get out of here! Right? I mean, right? It's just like a panic. It's just like it'll be so unbelievable. I don't know if to make the movie. It'd be just too funny. Okay, right, but that's what happened, right?
You have to wait for Mashiach,
right? Yeah, it's gonna be right. But that was it. But that was the challenge. That's why. So Egypt had enslaved the Jews because Jews had to learn how to be slaves. So what did they do wrong? Why did they deserve to get punished?
Because they didn't let us study Torah. They didn't let us keep out yeshivas.
Nope. There are two answers given.
They weren't godlike.
Go ahead.
They weren't practicing the mitzvot.
They didn't need to. They're Egyptians. They're not Jews. Now they have 7 commandments that they need to keep. They weren't doing those, but they didn't get punished because that was just a piece of it. They got punished because of what they did to the Jews. But now I'm telling you that the Jews had to go there.
Measure for measure.
But what did they do wrong?
They other gods.
They put themselves under slavery,
No.
They enslaved the Jews.
And so what's wrong? The Jews needed to be enslaved.
Yeah, but the enslaver needs to be punished.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't listen
They
to
went
God.
after material.
No. So the answer is like this. There are 2 answers. Number one, they needed to enslave the Jews. But they went above and beyond the call of duty. They did it too much. Okay, you need to enslave the Jews because God said you're going to enslave the Jews. So God enslave the Jews. But there was too much. There was too much to it.
They had too much joy in it.
Too mature, but they did it too much. They did it to the nth degree. That's what God originally said. The Jewish people are going to be enslaved for 430 years. We're only being enslaved for 210 years. You know why God shortened it 210 years? Because they took something that should have been over 410 years and they condensed it. They made it so harsh and they made it into 210 years. Really into 90 years. Right? Because they did it too harshly. That's answer number 1.
Look what happened in Germany.
Yeah.
Destroyed.
But I want to let you know.
For 70 years it was divided,
Right.
left and right. So they used to divide the people left and right. Left was life, death, and right was life.
Yeah.
So they were punished also.
Yeah. The second reason Egypt gets punished is because if God tells you to do something immoral, what should be your answer?
No.
But I need this done.
I don't want do it.
Find somebody else. Right? I understand there's a master plan to the world. But I don't have to be corrupt because you need it done. And because they didn't say that, that's why they held accountable for what was going on.
Because they could have said, find
They
somebody
should have
else.
said, they should have said, find somebody else. Right? And they didn't do that. And because they did it, they acted immoral, and therefore they were punished for it.
They enjoyed doing it.
And they enjoyed, they enjoyed it. Right? They did it too much gusto. Right? And that's really our job in this world. Right? To do the right thing.
So, Rabbi, do you think that all the Jews will be able to get along with each other, one another?
If what?
All the Jews, because you mentioned that the Messiah will come when the Jews will be together.
United.
United to
Yeah.
each other. So, do you think that will happen?
The answer is yes. It absolutely will happen. The only question is how much pain do we want to put ourselves through?
Might be nice to.
Yeah, we're gonna. God says, right, when the Messiah comes, we will be united. So the question is, are we ready to be united? Right? We have two choices on how that's going to go down. Either willingly or unwillingly. But that's our choice.
Yeah, but this thing is they're not preaching that much. They're not proclaiming that because many Jews say like, "Oh, I'm different than the other Jews," and for instance, in the public place, and you see all the young generation,
Right.
when they see each other, when they see the older Jews, they come with this Baruch Hashem, and when you see the older Jews who supposed to give the example,
Right.
they do something else,
No. So we have to learn how to be united. And by the way, I want to point out something. You know what it means to be united?
Be together.
Going in the same direction.
Okay, so let's say we're all united in Save the Whales.
And what?
In Save the Whales. Is that Jewish unity?
No.
No.
No. Okay, so what's being united?
We have to be united in Torah.
Oh, right. Being united means that we get together about Torah.
Which is not likely to happen.
Yes.
I like
Yes.
your positivity, but please don't say that here.
Oh, yeah.
The answer is absolutely, of course, right? Okay.
No, they have to
And we'll tell you something. By the way, everyone here has an extra responsibility. I hate to do this to you, but I'm just letting you know. Because people know that you come and study Torah. So you have to show people how people who study Torah act. You see, if a person who studies Torah then doesn't act appropriately, what are the people going to say?
It's the Torah.
It's a cult.
And no, they're going to say, it doesn't make you better. Right? They say it's a cult. Why do they say it's a cult?
Because you're not doing
Because
right.
it relieves them of the responsibility of having to grow themselves. And that's what happens.
I got a question.
Yes.
So, was the Holocaust necessary in order for Israel to be reborn?
Okay. The answer is, I don't know.
But it was part of God's plan.
It is.
But the start of Israel was way before World War II.
The what?
The start of Israel.
The
was
start,
way before-
absolutely.
Yeah, Israel did not happen as a reward for the Holocaust.
Well, the answer is, do you know? I don't know.
But the groundwork was set in the Balfour Declaration.
Absolutely. I'll tell you something fascinating. After the Holocaust, there was a tremendous mercy from heaven that God had on the Jewish people.
A little late.
No, but don't say a little late. Because it's again, everything that happens in the world, God controls everything that happens in the world. If you want to walk away with one message from Passover, is God controls everything that goes on in the world. How do we know that?
Because you said so many times.
But
How do we know that? How do we know that?
we don't, because we have free choice.
We believe.
What?
We believe.
No, some people believe, right? Here's the chair over here. Right? Some people believe, right? Some people believe, and we know. How do we know? Okay, right? How do we know? So let me tell you how we know. Very important there. Because this is what you're going to teach them at your Seder. You're going to go to New Jersey and you're going to teach them this, okay? You know who asked who is God?
What'd you say?
Who asked who is your God?
Pharaoh.
Where is God?
Paro.
Paro. Pharaoh asked the question. That was Pharaoh's question. Do you understand? If somebody's saying who's God, you say, oh, you and Pharaoh, the same boat. So what was God's answer to Pharaoh?
Watch what's going
Plague 1, Plague 2, Plague 3, Plague 4, Plague 5, Plague 6, Plague 7, Plague 8, Plague 9, Plague 10. And each those plagues came in a group of 3. And each one of those groups of 3 had a message to deliver to Pharaoh. But not only to deliver to Pharaoh, who is the recipient of that message?
All the Egyptians.
The Jewish people.
The Jewish people! For us and our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren, to our parents who missed the memo, to our grandparents who missed the memo. I'm going to read you something. Beginning of Parshas Bo, chapter 12 in Exodus. I want to read you the first 2 verses. And take these 2 verses and just instill it in your mind. And I apologize, not chapter 12. It is actually chapter 10. Let me read it to you. My page 341. Burn this into your mind. Don't ever forget this. Page 341. Hashem said to Moses, come to Pharaoh. Right? Come to Pharaoh. Yeah, back you. Right? Come to Pharaoh. Right? Page 341, chapter 10. Verse number 1. Share with your fellow seatmates there.
Fellow Jews.
Fellow Jews, my friend, take this to the bank and never forget it. For all those people that say, who is God? Where is God? He doesn't control the world. There's nothing about him, okay? I just want to tell you something. Never forget this message that I'm about to teach you. Mark, why don't you read chapter 10, verse number 1 and 2.
Hashem said to Moses, come to Pharaoh, for I have made his heart and the heart of his servant stubborn, so that I can put these signs of mine in your midst, and so that you may relate in the ears of your son and your son's son. Ears, sorry, thank you. In your ears.
In the ears.
Ears of your son and your son's son, that I made a mockery of Egypt and my signs that I placed among them, that you may know I am Hashem.
Read the end of that verse. Why are all these signs coming along? What's the purpose?
So everyone that would know who God is.
He's the God.
So everybody will know that God is in charge.
You shall know that I am Hashem.
Yeah.
You know what that's called?
No.
God's calling card. God was here. You know what the mafia does to make sure you know it was their hit, not anybody else's? Don't say it. You don't know what it is?
They hurt you.
You know,
What was the question?
the mafia, when they want you to know it's a mafia hit, right?
Yeah.
Right? They go ahead and they do something, right? Just not so nice. And hopefully they do it after the person's dead. Right? Sometimes, right? Right? And what do? Right? They go ahead, right? Because they want you to know it's the mafia. And why is God making all these plagues and taking the Egyptians and playing with them and hardening Pharaoh's heart and letting everything know? Why is God doing all that? For one simple reason. I was here. God. Right? Signed. Don't ever forget it. Don't let anybody ever say that it's not me.
Why does it say come to town? Yes, go to
Yeah, good. Excellent, great question. Right? It says, come to Pharaoh, come with me. And I want to show you something amazing. If you actually read the Chumash carefully, you will see something amazing. By the beginning of the first plague, okay, Remember, I told you the plagues come in sets of 3, right? So what is the first set of plagues?
Blood.
Blood,
Frogs.
frogs,
Blood,
lice.
lice,
Okay?
blood.
Blood, frogs, lice.
And what's the time frame between that when you do 3 and then there's a break?
Okay, no. So the blood is like this. At the 3rd, 6th, and 9th plague all come without warning. Okay, meaning.
Moses didn't go over to him and say, hey.
Hey, by the way, it's going to be lice now. No. What happened was the first 2 plagues, plagues 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, all came with 3 weeks of warning, 1 week of plague. That was the cadence. 3 weeks warning, 1 week plague. 3 weeks warning, 1 week plague. 3rd plague, bam! You just got the plague smack on your head. Okay, that's what it came. But now I want to show you something. You turn to chapter 7. Okay, chapter 7. No, Parshas Va'era now, page 327. Right? What verse? It is like this.
First plague blood.
7:17. Right? Chapter 7, verse 17. Okay.
So it says Hashem.
So says Hashem. Isaac, you want to read?
So says Hashem, though, through this shall you know that I am Hashem. Behold, with the staff that is my hand, I shall strike the water that are in the river, and they are.
No, and they shall change to blood.
Shall change
to blood.
To blood.
Okay, so says Hashem. What's the beginning of that verse? So says Hashem.
God is speaking.
Through this you shall know that I am Hashem. Remember when Moses shows up to Pharaoh and said God said let the Jewish people out, and what did Pharaoh say to God? What does Pharaoh say to Moses? Who is God? So God's telling him, so says Hashem. You want to know who God is? Okay, folks, you asked for it. Let me go and show you who I am.
Watch the space.
Right, so says Hashem, through this you shall know that I am Hashem. Right, you shall know that I am Hashem. By the way, the 3rd plague. What was the 3rd plague? By the way, after the plague of blood, when the blood came along, what did Pharaoh do? He got his necromancers, and what did he do? And they also turned the water into blood. Very interesting. They could not turn blood into water. They could turn water into blood. They couldn't reverse it. They just brought more blood upon themselves. And what happened with the plague of frogs? What happened when the frogs came?
They were everywhere and they multiplied.
What did Pharaoh do?
He had his servants try to kill them by the night.
No. Before then? He had his necromancers show up.
Oh, and they did more.
And they brought in more frogs. Could they get the frogs away? No. By the lice. What did Pharaoh do by the lice? He called his necromancers.
They couldn't do it.
And they couldn't make lice. You know why they couldn't make lice?
They're too small.
They're too small. Black magic. They were using black magic. And Pharaoh, by the way, this Pharaoh is a Pharaoh of Egypt. By the way, Pharaoh is just the name of all the kings of Egypt were called pharaohs. Like we have presidents, people have kings, right? In Egypt, they had pharaohs.
And they were too small.
And the lice was too small. They were smaller than the size of a barley. And black magic does not work on a size smaller than a barley.
But they were swimming.
And what did they say? So what did the Egyptian necromancers say? It is the finger of God. So after 3 plagues, what did the Egyptians figure out? There's a God in the world. Oh, this is the God you're talking about.
So who do you think the power is behind the magician's magic?
What? No, black power. Black magic.
But black power...
Black magic.
Is it like their God and they're doing it? Or is it like they have another God that's the black
So
magic
this is...
God?
Right. So, no. So the black magic is... Yeah. It's kind of voodoo type of stuff. You know, it's much more... It's much more cult... Whatever. There's... Remember, there's a balance in the world between the forces of good and the forces of evil.
Like Santeria.
Like Star Wars. Remember that. Star Wars, right? You got the good force, the good guys, the bad guys.
Aren't they the gifts that were sent away?
Yeah, they were the gifts that were sent away from, right? Abraham sent them away to his sons to the east.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's okay. They could do it. Okay. What is the purpose of the second set, the second 3 plagues? Wild animals, death of the animals, boils.
They worship them.
And so let's take a look. Let's see what the message was. Okay.
What chapter?
What chapter? It's chapter number 8.
The Egyptians did. I mean,
Verse number 18. 8:18. Okay, page 333, chapter 8, verse number 18. No, chapter 8, verse 18. Page 3, Joy, you want to read?
And on that day I shall set apart the land of Goshen upon which my people stands, that there shall be no swarm there, so that you will know that I am Hashem in the midst of the land.
Stop. What was the purpose of the next 3?
Defining the borders.
What's the purpose?
Distinguishing between the Jews and the Egyptians.
No, but more than that?
To reinforce that I am Hashem.
I am in the midst of the land. I care what goes on in this world. This world is not a hefker place. This world is not ownerless. But I am God in the midst of the land. I'm not a Swiss watchmaker who makes a watch and has nothing to do with what happens to the watch. I am Hashem who is in the midst of the land. Right? I care what goes on. I'm involved in what goes on in the world. Don't think it happens without me. By the way, what was plague number 6? Arov was wild animals. Dever was deafening animals. Boils. And what happened when Pharaoh tells his necromancers to show up at a time of boils?
All the people were full of them. They were disfigured.
What?
They were disfigured with boils. Boils are painful.
There are different types of boils. And they got the best type of boils, the most painful. Got to get right to page 25, 26 in your Haggadah, in your art school youth Haggadah. Right? You can have all the plagues in front of you. It's nice and fun. Okay, so you have boils. Okay? You have boils. Guess what happens when you have boils, my friend? What happened to the Egyptian necromancers when Pharaoh called them? They called in sick. Didn't bother showing up. You know why? Because I am Hashem in the midst of the land. Okay? We cool?
Yeah.
So first 3 plagues is, I am God. Here's my calling card. Want to know who I am? Well, this is who I am. Plagues 4, 5, and 6. I am God in the midst of the land. That's who I am.
So back to his
what question?
Yeah, back to his question about the Holocaust.
Hold on. No, I didn't finish.
Okay.
I didn't finish. Frankie, you're jumping the gun.
All right.
What was the purpose of the last 3 plagues?
So how could Jews get out with the treasures of Egypt?
No.
To solidify the relationship with Hashem.
Go ahead. The what? Turn to chapter 9, verse number 14. Chapter 9, verse number 14, page 337. Scott, you want to read?
Yeah, get that. For this time I shall send all my plagues against your heart and upon your servants and your people, so that you shall know that there is none like me in all the world.
What's the message of plague 7, 8, 9?
I'm the big boss.
I'm the big
I'm the big kahuna.
I run this world. I control everything. And there is no power to be matched like me. Three sets of plagues, 3 distinct lessons that we're teaching, that God is teaching the Egyptians. But more important than teaching the Egyptians, teaching the Jews. And what are the Jews supposed to do with this? Teach it to your children. For gosh sakes, teach it to your children. Right? He starts off right at the beginning, right? He says, right in chapter 10. What he says, why am I doing this to Egypt? He says, for one simple reason. And so that you may relate in the ears of your sons and your sons' sons, that they make a mockery of Egypt. And my signs that I may placed among them, that you may know that I am Hashem.
Repeat the 3 lessons again one more time.
Okay, lesson number 1 is I am Hashem. That's what ends off with lice. Right? They said the finger of God. Right? Next one is that I am Hashem in the midst of the land. I care what goes on. The Egyptian necromancer.
Hey, I'm the big guy. I control everything.
I'm involved in the world. I care.
Not only do I control everything, I want to.
Right. I want to know. I want you to know. I care how you act and how you treat other people and what you do.
I still like you.
And
like I still care about you.
Right. Positive and negative, right?
Yeah.
And then number 3 is that there are no powers that are matched. I am the supreme power of all powers.
Yeah, I don't have a brother or anything.
Right. There's no cousin who's got some of my swag. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm running the world. You understand?
Yeah, that connection to the prayer. When we say Adonai, Echad,
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. That prayer is, remember, Shema. If you actually stop and think about it for a second, when you say the word, you say the sentence Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, is a very silly sentence. Because really, what's the translation? Shema Yisrael. What does that mean?
Hear
Israel. Adonai, God. Eloheinu, God. Adonai, God. Echad is one.
Oh, the significance is...
So did you just say, here is a God, God is one? Like this is like ridiculous.
No, not really.
Okay.
One, right?
No. Okay, so say Shema Yisrael Adonai Echad. Here is a God is one. That's if I didn't write the sentence, that's how I would write it.
The importance in it is the number 3, because if something is holy, and number 2 is holier, and number 3 is the holiest, then he's focusing on number 3.
But it's Adonai, God of
mercy,
Elohim,
Eloheinu, God of justice, which seems to be a contradiction. You have a God of mercy and a God of justice, and all of a sudden you start seeing, right? All of a sudden you start seeing that there's a conflict. Where does idolatry come from? Idolatry comes from your question. Because if God is so merciful and God is all controlling, then how could there be a Holocaust? Right? That's right. That right, which is right. That's the question. So what do we say? So we say like this: Shema Yisrael. Listen up, Jews, because it's only the Jews that kind of get rid of God at this point. Okay, and it's fascinating. It's a praise for the Jews because we rather believe there's no God than He's bad. It's just fascinating. Okay, but Shema Yisrael, listen up, Jews. Adonai, God of mercy. Eloheinu, God of justice. Seems to be conflicting. Sometimes bad things happen to good people. Sometimes good things happen to bad people, right? And by the way, what did the Greeks say? Look, there's 2 gods. There's a good God. There's a bad God. Sometimes they fight. Sometimes the good guy wins. Sometimes the bad God wins. If we sleep with a virgin, that will pacify the gods. Maybe we'll go and we'll burn her. So that way, then also that would be even better, right? We do all this ridiculous stuff. What do we say? Shema Yisrael, Hear, O Israel, Adonai, God of mercy. Eloheinu, God of justice, seeming to be a conflict. Adonai Echad. It's the one and the same God. Which one? Adonai, God of mercy. So listen now what you're saying. Shema Yisrael, Hear, O Israel, Adonai, God of mercy. Eloheinu, God of justice, seemingly a conflict. Adonai Echad, it's the one and only God. It's all God of mercy. How does justice fit in, etc., etc., all those questions, right? The answer is God, there's a reason before it goes on. Just like in Egypt. I like discussing Egypt. I hate discussing the Holocaust. You know why?
It's too close.
Yeah, we're not so emotionally attached to Egypt. It's only 330 years ago. So we're getting over it about now. Right? So I like discussing that. And that was 90 plus years of a Holocaust. The Holocaust was 6 years, this was 90 years. Right? Yep, but we know the reason. How do we know the reason? Because the Torah tells us. What's the reason? We had to get instilled in us, right, this idea to know how to serve God.
Right.
So we go ahead and that's what we say. That's when we say Shema Yisrael, that's what we're really saying. In essence, we're saying He is God. I understand you run the entire world out of mercy. And I might not understand it. You ask me, I don't know why. I don't know.
Do you think people are less religious or more in Holocaust after Holocaust?
What?
After Holocaust, then they less?
So let me tell you something very fascinating.
May 19th.
People that went through the Holocaust, the one common denominator was you could not stay the same.
You have to be one.
You had to move. Right. You had to choose one way or the other. And that was the choice that we were making, right? And that's what it did. When the Jewish people are compared to to oil. You know why we compare it to oil? Mm-hmm.
Because when you light it, it burns a long time? The light
No,
of the oil
because
burns a long time?
but doesn't, first of all, doesn't mix with other people. But the more you squeeze the olive, the more oil it produces. Right? The more the juice gets squeezed, the better we become, the purer we become.
So Rabbi Shalom Arush was right then, because he said, why he doesn't understand why Jewish people doesn't understand the reason the Holocaust happened. Is he mentioned somewhere that is lack of gratitude in his garden of gratitude. Have you?
No, right. So it's very fascinating, because this whole thing about gratitude, right, is something that really we have to walk, when we walk away from Passover night, what we have to feel is this immense feeling of gratitude to God.
The first night?
The first night, yeah.
Second night?
Second night too. We to repeat.
Third night we're good.
The third night we're good. Right? But some people, we need to hear it twice. You know what I'm saying?
We have to be grateful to God.
I feel like I've said this once or twice before, but okay, let's write this again. Right? To understand? But the whole idea is that as we go through this world, right? As we go through this world, and we have all these things happening to us, right? And God comes in and he just swoops on in, and he saves, right? And he takes the Jewish people and walks us through, and goes and he 10 plagues. He takes the entire world and he turns it upside down, and then he walks us out, and we go to the splitting of the Reed Sea, and every water in the world splits, and we end up then at Mount Sinai and receive the Torah. He chooses us. He says, "I'm taking you out of Egypt to be your God, to give you an ability to create a relationship with me." How do you have to feel after that?
Gratitude.
Right.
Joy.
How do you thank God? How do you thank God for something like that? It's a privilege. It's an incredible. What do you do? What do you say to God? Like, how does this work?
Thank you.
Right, and that's the message that you got to make sure you're giving over. And if we don't give it over, we're in big trouble. Rabbi Feigenbaum is here. He's going to now sell a chametz, and when stay seated, and he's going to explain to us what you're doing when we're selling the chametz. Just one point of information. I do not get a cut on this. These aren't Scroll Youth Haggadahs. Okay, they're written, they're laid out in a beautiful, colorful, big print, easy to read style. So we don't. What? Okay. Right. We don't need. Right, the old good old Maxwell House Haggadahs, right? That are always very important, very good, right? And are nice to have. And the ones I grew up with, the yellow and red ones, right? Okay, remember those? Right? They get a little warming. These here are put up nicely. They're printed nicely, and they really make it that you can read what it is. Now listen to me carefully. Rabbi Feigenbaum is going to go ahead. He's going to sell our chametz. Okay, so he's going to and what we're doing is. We are appointing. We are going ahead, and we are going to appoint him as a messenger. Okay, we are not selling him his chametz because, as you know, he has plenty of his own. He doesn't need your chametz. It's not going to help him. He can't do anything with it.
I signed the other day.
What?
I signed it here about a week
Okay,
ago.
no. So if you already appointed me, then you don't need to do it with him, right? But he's here. To go ahead to help you. If you're going to be in a different part of the world, right, you're going to be in the East Coast or West Coast, just when he comes here to do this, just go ahead and let him know, because if you're on the East Coast, he's going to have to sell it earlier. If you're on the West Coast, he's going to have to buy it back later, right? So just let him know when you want to go ahead and when you want to, where you're going to be. So he could just help you take care of the problem of having your chametz on Pesach. So with no further ado, Rabbi Feigenbaum, again, I just want to also, on Wednesday night, this Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, at Or Torah, Rabbi Feigenbaum, I will be giving a second part of the series on going through the Haggadah. So if you come, we'll actually get a chance to go through the Haggadah and understand what actually is going on.
Wednesday night, you said?
Wednesday night, yeah. I mean, tomorrow night we'll have class here as regular, and then on Wednesday night we're going to have a second part on how.
That's the regular class, like at 8 o'clock?
Yeah. Regular class, that's what we're going to be doing.